Welcome back to Speducation. I am your host, Brandon Reed, and if this is your first time to the channel, a special welcome to you. Well, it's a new week and we have a new lesson. And last week we were talking about reading and decoding and how reading and decoding can sometimes be difficult for individuals with learning disabilities. We talked about some of the struggles that they face, and I demonstrated how reading and decoding would feel for somebody that doesn't have a learning disability. So hopefully you got a lot out of that lesson. Well, I didn't want to leave you hanging because there are strategies to help with reading and decoding. What are they? Well, that's what we're going to learn about today in today's lesson. Today's lesson, What is it like to have a learning disability, Part 7, Strategies for Reading and Decoding. Now, do you remember some of the reasons why students have difficulty with reading and decoding? If you don't, that's okay. And if you're new to the channel and this is your first video, that's okay too. So there are a lot of different reasons why students really struggle with reading and decoding. But one of the main things can be summed up pretty easily from lexialearning.com. Check this out. Let's say you ask two students to spell the word car. Student A writes down the word in 2 seconds and is ready to move on immediately. This is automatic thinking. Student B's thought process might include questions like, does car start with a C or a K? Is the second letter an A? The last letter is an R. How do I write an R? This is cognitive thinking, which involves actively thinking about every step in the process before acting. So as you can see from the excerpt, a lot of students that struggle with reading and decoding have problems with automatic thinking. And that is a struggle that a lot of people have difficulty with, including myself, because I have to think about what it is that I'm doing. I have to think about what it is that I'm saying. Because if I try to do it or try to do something without thinking, or in these videos, I'm trying to speak too fast, my brain can't process what it is that I want to say. And then I make mistakes. So you have to slow down. And we will get talking about cognitive thinking in a later video. But the one thing that you need to know is that students with learning disabilities, they have to think really hard about what it is that they're doing. Because in order for them to understand the answer, they have to understand the question first. And when everybody else is already has that active thinking down, the student that has a learning disability feels like he's being left behind because everybody else is just blowing past him like he's standing still. So it can be a little overwhelming and it can feel a little defeating for that student with a learning disability. Believe me, I know because I've felt that myself. So what are some strategies that can help these individuals? Well, there are a lot of strategies, but today we're just going to look at 2 strategies. What are they? Well, let's take a look at them. The first strategy is graphic organizers. The second is reading the question before the passage. Now, when we talk about graphic organizers, you've probably heard these before, and you're probably thinking, well, yeah, I have, and I've probably used them in school, but how can those help individuals with learning disabilities? Well, graphic organizers are great for organizing thoughts, ideas, details, dates, citations, excerpts, and whatever else one might need for reading. Because think about it. Individuals, especially those that are on the spectrum, they need structure. They need some sort of organization that helps them think and process. Because again, the less that they have to really put into thinking and the more that they can actually get down to doing, it helps them out a lot. So graphic organizers like this, keeping track of events. If you're reading a passage, then you can write down the chapter title or the chapter number, and then you can talk about the different summaries, okay? You can summarize what happened in the chapter, you can provide an illustration, and you can provide questions as to what was going on. This forces the individual to slow down and actually think about what it is that they're reading, and it helps organize their thoughts. Now you're probably wondering, well, what about decoding? I mean, that's great for helping organize thoughts, but how does decoding, what are some graphic organizers for that? Well, here's one right here, a decoding poster. In this decoding poster, you can look and it tells you some of the decoding strategies that you can use, such as stretching it out, stretching the word out, looking for picture clues that might help you understand or describe or define what the word is, looking for chunks. That basically means if you have a really big word that you're not quite sure how to pronounce or what it is, breaking it down into smaller parts. Maybe even go back and reread the passage. Maybe there's something that you may have missed. Get your mouth ready. So when you're preparing to say a word, look and see, is it a P? Is it a D? Is it a Q? Is it a B? Okay, because each of those have a different way that your mouth moves. So getting your mouth ready can help. Does it sound right when you read the word? Does it sound right how you're saying it? So if I were looking at the word citations, a student that doesn't know that word might think citations because they think the C sounds like a cat. Citations. Well, that doesn't quite sound right. Okay. Ask, does it make sense? Well, if it doesn't make sense, then maybe you need to go back and relook at the word. And if you don't know, skip it and move on and come back to it later or have a teacher help you with it. The last graphic organizer is a sequencing map. So if you're reading a passage and you're not quite sure how to write down the events, you can write down the title, you can write down the author, you can write down the genre. Then that could be the first chapter. You could sketch out what you think the first chapter is about based off of the title of the chapter. Then you can summarize what it is that you read in there. Same thing with this. Chapter 2, you can sketch out what you think happens, sketch out what you think the title means. And then as you read it, you can write down some of the details. And then the same thing for the last. Again, this, and this are all examples of graphic organizers that can help individuals with learning disabilities, specifically those with reading and decoding issues. Now, the next one is reading the question before reading the passage. This one may sound like common sense, but believe me, when I was in school, it wasn't always that way. I had always been taught before I got into a special ed classroom to read the passage, then read the question. But when I got into a special ed classroom, they said, read the question first before you read the passage. And for me, I thought they were crazy, but there are actual benefits to it. What are they? Well, the first benefit is it provides students with a guide. If they look at the question, then they know exactly what it is that they're looking for in the passage. So if the question is asking about who's the main character in the passage, then that's the person that you're looking for as you're reading, because now you know what you're looking for. It also helps activate prior knowledge. If you know a little bit about history and maybe Abraham Lincoln or the Civil War, and the question is about that, then you know, okay, this is what I need to be looking for as I'm reading the passage. I know a lot about the Civil War. I know that there were the blue and the gray, and the blue was the Union and the gray was the Confederates. Okay, so that's important. So as I'm reading this passage, I need to remember that when I'm answering this question. Another thing is helps identify keywords, details, and characters. If the question is asking about a specific detail, such as a date or a person or a title, or it's asking about a character, or it's using keywords, okay, that students may not necessarily know, but they can identify the word in the question. They can look for that specific word in the reading passage. And then it also helps support explicit instruction. What do I mean by that? I mean being as explicit as possible, being very detailed and ordered, and letting the student know this is exactly what it is that you need to be doing. Reading the questions helps guide the individual so they know specifically what it is that they're looking for. When I was in school and I was trying to read the passage first and then read the question, I would get confused all the time because I would read the passage, then I'd read the question, but then I'd forget where was that in the passage. So then I'd go back. Whereas if I read the question first, then I knew exactly what I was looking for. So when I saw the answer, I could stop, go back, answer the question, and then go back to the passage and try to find the answer to the second question. By doing that, it saves you a lot of time, and it can help not just learning disabled students, but students in general. Now, There are a lot of different strategies, and I covered only two of them. But if you would like to learn about some of the other strategies, check out the links in the description to this video. I tried to provide as many as possible, so I believe there are about 4 in there. But if you go on Google and you type in reading strategies or decoding strategies, you'll be able to find a whole list. But hopefully the links that I provided will help you. Now, there's a lot of other areas that students with learning disabilities struggle with. What are they? Well, we're actually going to be talking about 2 next week. So let's take a look at next week's lesson. Next week's lesson, what is it like to have a learning disability? Part 8, associative versus cognitive. And if you liked what you saw, please click the like button. And if you want updates on future videos, feel free to click the subscribe button and ring the bell for updates on future videos. And as always, if you found something interesting or you have follow-up questions about the video, please, by all means, drop a line in the comments section because I would love to hear from you. And if you know somebody that might benefit from this channel, please share it with them because the more people that can see this channel, the more people that I can help. And until next time, class dismissed.